Our bodies have this incredible built-in repair crew. But as we get older, let's be real, their communication starts to break down a little. So today, we're going to zoom in on one of the most important members of that crew, this powerful little molecule called GHK-Cu. Think about it like this. Your body has a perfect blueprint for self-repair, right? It's the ultimate instruction manual. But what happens when the ink on that blueprint just starts to fade with age? That's kind of the problem we face with some of our most vital biological compounds. And for GHK-Cu, the numbers are pretty dramatic. I mean, check this out. At age 20, you're walking around with about 200 nanograms per milliliter of this stuff in your blood. Fast forward to age 60, and that level has taken a nosedive to just 80. It's really no coincidence that this drop happens right as our body's ability to repair itself declines. So how in the world did we even find out about this powerful little peptide? Well, the story is fascinating. It all goes back to the 1970s with a groundbreaking experiment that gave us the first hint that maybe, just maybe, we could turn back the cellular clock. Okay, so the discovery story is pretty wild. It kicks off in 1973. A scientist, Dr. Lauren Pickard, notices that old liver cells start acting young again when they're exposed to blood from younger people. It took another 4 years to finally pinpoint this secret ingredient, this peptide called GHK. But the real game changer, that came way later, in 2010, when a huge genetic database showed us GHK's true secret. It can actually talk to thousands of our genes and change the instructions they follow.
So that begs the question, right? How does one little peptide do so much? How does it actually get in there and rebuild tissue from the inside out? Let's get into the mechanics of it.
You can think of GHK-Cu as a master conductor for your body's repair orchestra. First, it cranks up the production of collagen and elastin, the proteins that keep your skin firm and bouncy. Second, it acts like a software update for our genes, basically telling them to behave like they did when they were younger. Third, it's a really potent anti-inflammatory, which helps calm down damage. And fourth, it actually improves blood flow by helping to build new vessels to get nutrients right where they're needed most. Now, this process of changing gene activity has a name. It's called epigenetic alteration. Here's a simple way to think about it. Your DNA is the hardware in a computer. GHK-Cu acts like a software update. It doesn't change the hardware itself, but it totally changes which programs are running. And it's this genomic reset that's at the very heart of its regenerative power. So just how big is that software update we're talking about? Well, get this. GHK-Cu can influence the activity of over 31% of our genes. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't just making a few tiny tweaks here and there. It's conducting a massive, system-wide overhaul, shifting our cells from a state of breaking down to a state of actively repairing. Okay, the science is really cool. I get it. But the big question we all have is, does it actually work on real people? Let's take a look at what the clinical trials have found. When it comes to skincare, the results are pretty compelling. In one clinical study, a GHK-Cu formula reduced wrinkle volume by a staggering 55.8% when compared to a regular control serum. I mean, that's not just a minor improvement, that is a huge, statistically significant change in the actual structure of the skin. But its power in wound healing is frankly even more dramatic. In a study on diabetic ulcers, which are notoriously difficult to treat, a GHK-Cu gel achieved a median wound closure of 98.5%. This just shows its profound ability to kickstart the body's repair mechanisms, even in tissue that's really compromised. And we can literally see this stuff working under the skin. Using high-tech ultrasound, researchers saw a 51% jump in collagen density in just 3 months for the people who responded best. You can see it in these images. The brighter it gets, the more collagen is being rebuilt. The proof is right there. Now, GHK-Cu isn't the only player in the game. You might have also heard of a variant called AHK-Cu, especially when people talk about hair. So what's the difference and why should you care? So the key difference is actually really simple, but it's a big deal. AHK-Cu is basically a synthetic cousin of the natural GHK-Cu. By swapping just one single amino acid, glycine for alanine, scientists created a version that is specifically tuned to target hair follicles. So think of it this way. GHK is the all-star for general skin repair, but AHK is the specialist you call in for targeted hair and scalp care. All right, so we know what it is, how it works, and we've seen some of the evidence. The next logical question is, how do people actually use this? And maybe even more importantly, what are the risks? So, how do you actually use it? Well, the most common way is topically, in creams or serums that you apply right to the skin. For a more body-wide, systemic effect, it can be injected just under the skin. Some people pair it with microneedling to help those serums penetrate deeper. And then there are things called troches. They're basically small lozenges that dissolve in your mouth, which is another way to absorb it. Now, just to give you a sense of what's being explored, and this is absolutely not a recommendation, it's just for informational purposes. A common protocol you might see for injectable GHK-Cu is around 2 milligrams once a day.
But, and this is a big but, it is not all upside. We absolutely have to talk about the risks. If you use way too much topically, it can cause a weird reaction that some people call the copper uglies, where it actually starts to damage the skin. In really rare cases of extreme excess, copper toxicity is a real danger. It's also critical to know that GHK-Cu is not FDA approved for injection. And a final huge point, the quality of these products is all over the map, so where you get it from matters a lot. Which, of course, leads us to the single most important takeaway of all this. Look, GHK-Cu is a genuinely powerful molecule, but this is not a DIY project. The expert consensus is clear. If this is something you are even remotely considering, the only safe way forward is to work directly with a qualified healthcare provider. They are the only ones who can help you navigate the options, make sure you're getting a quality product, and find the right approach that is safe for you.